Who is Thoth? Thoth was the god of knowledge, the moon, measurement, wisdom, the alphabet, records, thought, intelligence, meditation, the mind, logic, reason, reading, hieroglyphics, magic, secrets, scribes, and writing. He also went by other names in the myths of ancient civilizations. He pretty much play a major god, they all of them, same soul, different identities. Thoth or Jehudi was one of the deities of the Egyptian pantheon. In art, he was often depicted as a man with the head of an ibis or a baboon, animals sacred to him. His feminine counterpart was Seshet, and his wife was Maat. Thoth's chief temple was located in the city of Khem, later called Hermopolis Magna during the Greco-Roman era, in reference to him through the Greeks' interpretation that he was the same as their god Hermes, and Shmaonain in the Coptic rendering, and was partially destroyed in 1826. In that city, he led the Ogdod pantheon of 8 principal deities. He also had numerous shrines within the cities of Abydos, Hazert, Urit, Ab, Riqui, Tor, September, Hat, Slkit, Talmsis, Anchamutet, Amen, Hariab, and Ta-Kens. Thoth played many vital and prominent roles in Egyptian mythology, such as maintaining the universe, and being one of the 2 deities, the other being Maat, who stood on either side of Ra's boat. In the later history of ancient Egypt, Thoth became heavily associated with the arbitration of godly disputes, the arts of magic, the system of writing, the development of science, and the judgment of the dead. Thoth played a crucial role in the design and orientation of many famous pyramids, temples, and ziggurats. In December 2000, I traveled to Egypt. There I had met researcher John Anthony West. He told me that the name Khufu is found in more than one cartouche in the relief chamber above the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid. Khufu is credited as building the Great Pyramid. Khufu was Thoth Khufu's folly. The first races can be authenticated in the pyramid texts, where a union with the ibis Thoth takes place in the marshy area of the delta. The pyramid texts were a collection of Egyptian mortuary prayers, hymns, and spells intended to protect a dead king or queen and ensure life and sustenance in the hereafter. The texts inscribed on the walls of the inner chambers of the pyramids, from circa 2686 circa 2160 BC, are found at Saqqara in several 5th and 6th dynasty pyramids, of which that of Unas, last king of the 5th dynasty, is the earliest known. The texts constitute the oldest surviving body of Egyptian religious and funerary writings available to modern scholars. Thoth made calculations concerning the heavens, the stars, and the earth, the reckoner of times and of seasons, the one who measured out the heavens and planned the earth. He was he who balances, the god of the equilibrium and master of the balance, the lord of the divine body, scribe of the company of the gods, the voice of Ra, the author of every work on every branch of knowledge, both human and divine, he who understood all that is hidden under the heavenly vault. Thoth has played a prominent role in many of the Egyptian myths. Displaying his role as arbitrator, he had overseen the 3 epic battles between good and evil. All 3 battles are fundamentally the same and belong to different periods. The first battle took place between Ra and Apep, the second between Heru, Bekutet, and Set, and the third between Horus, the son of Osiris, and Set. In each instance, the former god represented order while the latter represented chaos. If one god was seriously injured, Thoth would heal them to prevent either from overtaking the other. Thoth was also prominent in the Osiris myth, being of great aid to Isis. After Isis gathered together the pieces of Osiris' dismembered body, he gave her the words to resurrect him so she could be impregnated and bring forth Horus. When Horus was slain, Thoth gave the formulae to resurrect him as well. Similar to God speaking the words to create the heavens and earth in Judeo-Christian mythology, Thoth, being the god who always speaks the words that fulfill the wishes of Ra, spoke the words that created the heavens and earth in Egyptian mythology. This mythology also credits him with the creation of the 365-day calendar. Originally, according to the myth, the year was only 360 days long, and Nut was sterile during these days, unable to bear children. Thoth gambled with Khonsu, the moon, for 1/72 of its light, 360/72 equals 5, or 5 days and 1. During these 5 days, Nut gave birth to Keru-ur, Horus the elder, face of heaven, Osiris, Set, Isis, and Nephthys. In the Ogdod cosmogony, Thoth gave birth to Ra, Atum, Nefertum, and Khepri by laying an egg while in the form of an ibis, or later as a goose laying a golden egg. Thoth's roles in Egyptian mythology were many. He served as a mediating power, especially between good and evil, making sure neither had a decisive victory over the other. The ancient Egyptians regarded Thoth as one, self-begotten, and self-produced. He was the master of both physical and moral, divine law, making proper use of Ma'at. He is credited with making the calculations for the establishment of the heavens, stars, earth, and everything in them. Compare this to how his feminine counterpart, Ma'at, was the force which maintained the universe. He is said to direct the motions of the heavenly bodies. Without his words, the Egyptians believed the gods would not exist. His power was almost unlimited in the underworld and rivaled that of Ra and Osiris. The Egyptians credited him as the author of all works of science, religion and philosophy, and magic. The Greeks further declared him the inventor of astronomy, astrology, the science of numbers, mathematics, geometry, land surveying, medicine, botany, theology, civilized government, the alphabet, reading, writing, and oratory. They further claimed he was the true author of every work of a branch of knowledge, human and divine. Egyptologists disagree on Thoth's nature depending upon their view of the Egyptian pantheon. Most Egyptologists today side with Sir Flinders Petrie that Egyptian religion was strictly polytheistic, in which Thoth would be a separate god. His feminine counterpart was Seshet. He was the scribe to the gods who kept a great library of scrolls, over which Seshet, the goddess of writing, was thought to be mistress. He was associated by the Egyptians with speech, literature, arts, learning. Both he and Seshet were measurers and recorder of time. Many ancient Egyptians believed that Seshet invented writing, while Thoth taught writing to mankind. She was known as Mistress of the House of Books, indicating that she also took care of Thoth's library of spells and scrolls. Thoth became credited by the ancient Egyptians as the inventor of writing and alphabets, hieroglyphs themselves. He was also considered to have been the scribe of the underworld, and the moon became occasionally considered a separate entity, now that Thoth had less association with it, and more with wisdom. For this reason Thoth was universally worshipped by ancient Egyptian scribes. Thoth became credited as the inventor of the 365-day, rather than 360-day, calendar, it being said that he had won the extra 5 days by gambling with the moon, then known as Ayabet, in a game of dice, for 1/72 of its light, 5 equals 360/72. When the Ened and Ogdod systems started to merge, one result was that, for a time, Horus was considered a sibling of Isis, Osiris, Set, and Nephthys, and so it was said that Hathor/Nui had been cursed against having children during the 360-day year, but was able to have these 5 over the 5 extra days won by Thoth. In the underworld Duat, Thoth appeared as an ape, On, the god of equilibrium, who reported when the scales weighing the deceased heart against the feather, representing the principle of Ma'at, was exactly even. Ma'at is depicted as a tall woman wearing a crown surmounted by a huge ostrich feather. Ma'at was the ancient Egyptian concept of truth, balance, order, law, morality, and justice, who is sometimes personified as a goddess regulating the stars, seasons, and the actions of both mortals and the deities, who set the order of the universe from chaos at the moment of creation. Later, as a goddess in other traditions of the Egyptian pantheon, where most goddesses were paired with a male aspect, her masculine counterpart was Thoth, and their attributes are the same. After her role in creation and continuously preventing the universe from returning to chaos, her primary role in Egyptian mythology dealt with the weighing of souls that took place in the underworld, Duat. Her feather was the measure that determined whether the souls, considered to reside in the heart of the departed, would reach the paradise of afterlife successfully. In art, Thoth has been depicted in many ways depending on the era and on the aspect the artist wished to convey. Thoth was usually depicted with the head of an ibis, deriving from his name, and the curve of the ibis beak, which resembles the crescent moon. Sometimes he was depicted as a baboon holding up a crescent moon, as the baboon was seen as a nocturnal and intelligent creature. The association with baboons led to him occasionally being said to have as a consort Astenu, one of the male baboons at the place of judgment in the underworld, and on other occasions, Astenu was said to be Thoth himself. He also appears as a dog-faced baboon or a man with the head of a baboon when he is On, the god of equilibrium. In the form of Ad-Jehudi he took a more human-looking form. These forms are all symbolic and are metaphors for Thoth's attributes. The Egyptians did not believe these gods actually looked like humans with animal heads. There's always been a connection between Atlantis and Egypt. Thoth's other names include Jehudi, Tehudi, Sehudi, Lord of the Kemenu. In mythology, when Atlantis fell into the sea, flood myth, flow of the collective unconsciousness, Tahuti and his priests buried the knowledge and story of Atlantis in giant crystals as markers for the next reality that experience. Off they went in huge spaceships where they remained until the water subsided and a new grid consciousness manifested in which souls would experience. This aligns with the connection of ancient alien theory and reality, aliens who create realities for whatever their purpose then destroy them and create anew. And so it would seem that Thoth, in any reality, is a storyteller and creator god playing many roles simultaneously. He wears masks that denote association with the person he is depicting. Thoth was originally the deification of the moon in the Ogdode belief system. Initially, in that system, the moon had been seen to be the eye of Horus, the sky god, which had been semi-blinded, thus darker, in a fight against Set, the other eye being the sun. However, over time it began to be considered separately, becoming a lunar deity in its own right, and was said to have been another son of Ra. As the crescent moon strongly resembles the curved beak of the ibis, this separate deity was named Jehuti, i.e. Thoth, meaning ibis. Thoth became associated with the moon, due to the ancient Egyptians' observation that baboons, sacred to Thoth, sang to the moon at night. The moon not only provides light at night, allowing the time to still be measured without the sun, but its phases and prominence gave it a significant importance in early astrology/astronomy. The cycles of the moon also organized much of Egyptian society's civil and religious rituals and events. Consequently, Thoth gradually became seen as a god of wisdom, magic, and the measurement and regulation of events and of time. He was thus said to be the secretary and counselor of Ra, and with Ma'at, truth/order, stood next to Ra on the nightly voyage across the sky, Ra being a sun god. Thoth became credited by the ancient Egyptians as the inventor of writing, and was also considered to have been the scribe of the underworld, and the moon became occasionally considered a separate entity, now that Thoth had less association with it, and more with wisdom. For this reason Thoth was universally worshipped by ancient Egyptian scribes. Many scribes had a painting or a picture of Thoth in their office. Likewise, one of the symbols for scribes was that of the ibis. During the late period of Egyptian history, a cult of Thoth gained prominence due to its main center, Khnum, Hermopolis Magna, also becoming the capital, and millions of dead ibis were mummified and buried in his honor. The rise of his cult also led to his cult seeking to adjust mythology to give Thoth a greater role. Thoth was inserted in many tales as the wise counsel and persuader, and his association with learning and measurement led him to be connected with Seshet, the earlier deification of wisdom, who was said to be his daughter, or variably his wife. Thoth's qualities also led to him being identified by the Greeks with their closest matching god Hermes, with whom Thoth was eventually combined, as Hermes Trismegistus, also leading to the Greeks naming Thoth's cult center as Hermopolis, meaning city of Hermes. It is also viewed that Thoth was the god of scribe and not a messenger. Anubis was viewed as the messenger of the gods, as he traveled in and out of the underworld, to the presence of the gods, and to humans, as well. Some call this fusion Hermanubis. It is in more favor that Thoth was a record keeper, and not the messenger. In the papyrus of Ani copy of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the scribe proclaims, "On my writing pallet, O Thoth, and I have brought unto thee thine ink jar. I am not of those who work iniquity in their secret places, let not evil happen unto me." Chapter XXXB, Mudge of the Book of the Dead is by the oldest tradition said to be the work of Thoth himself. There is also an Egyptian pharaoh of the 16th dynasty of Egypt named Jehuti, Thoth, after him, and who reigned for 3 years. After years of intensive training, an initiate would lie down in the sarcophagus in the king's chamber. Through technology available at that time, linked to ancient aliens, an energy being created a white light spiral that would pass through the initiate's head. The initiate could then link his or her consciousness with the white light spiral and be projected into higher consciousness to be met by Thoth. Thoth as Hermes in ancient Greece complied. The Hermetic text referred to him as Kor Cosmo. What he knew he carved on stone, metaphor of physical plane, then hid most of the information. The sacred symbols of the cosmic elements he hid away, using the secrets of Osiris, keeping and maintaining silence, that younger ages of the cosmic time clock might seek them out. Thoth was said to have succeeded in understanding the mysteries of the heavens and to have revealed them by inscribing them in sacred books, which he then hid here on earth, intending that they should be searched for by future generations but found by those of the bloodline. Some of these sacred books are referred to as the 42 Books of Instructions or the 42 Books of Thoth, which describe the instructions for achieving immortality, plus 2 more books kept separately. The dating of the books is somewhere between the 3rd century BC and the 1st century AD. Their influence has been tremendous on the development of Western occultism and magic. Neo-pagan witchcraft contains many rituals and much esoteric symbolism based upon Hermetic writings. According to one legend, Hermes Trismegistus, who was a grandson of Adam and a builder of the Egyptian pyramids, authored the books. But more probably the books were written by several succeeding persons. According to legend, the books were initially written on papyrus. A chronicler of pagan lore, Clement of Alexandria, stated 36 of the Hermetic books contained the entire Egyptian philosophy, 4 books on astrology, 10 books called the Hieratic on law, 10 books on sacred rites and observances, 2 on music, and the rest on writing, cosmography, geography, mathematics, and measures and training of priests. 6 remaining books concerned medicine and the body, discussing diseases, instruments, the eyes, and women. Most of the Hermetic books, along with others, were lost during the burning of the royal libraries in Alexandria. The surviving books were secretly buried in the desert where they are presently located. A few initiates of the mystery schools, ancient secret cults, allegedly know their location. What remains of the surviving Hermetic lore has been passed down through generation and published in many languages. Most important of all are 3 works. The most important and oldest is the Divine Pynander. It consists on 17 fragments, all in one work. Within these fragments are many of the Hermetic concepts, including the divine wisdom and the secrets of the universe, were revealed to Hermes and the way in which Hermes established his ministry to spread this wisdom throughout the world. The Divine Pynander apparently was revised during the 1st centuries AD, but lost none of its meaning due to incorrect translations. Poimandra, or the Vision, is the 2nd book of the Divine Pynander, and perhaps the most famous. It relates Hermes' mystical vision, cosmogony, and the secret sciences of the Egyptians as to culture and the spiritual development of the soul. The 3rd work, Hermes Trismegistus, is the wisdom of the Hermetica, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. It's all about alchemy, time, and consciousness. Reality is myth, math, and metaphor. It is a consciousness computer experiment in time and illusion created by thought consciousness. The name Thoth means thought and time. Thoth was the master architect who created the blueprint of our reality based on the patterns of sacred geometry. It is here in the duality, duat, underworld, chaos, void, place of creation outside the box of our experience, reflected in gods and goddesses, the landscapes of Egypt, including the pyramids and temples, that we experience until we evolve in the alchemy of time and consciousness. Thoth created a grid program of experience, electromagnetic in nature, to allow for the bipolar aspects of linear time and illusion. Thoth constructed a pyramidal-shaped vehicle which personifies the nature of reality. He placed half above, as is above in the non-physical, and half below, as is below, thus creating the sands of time, the hourglass, the Xbox, at the center of the planet where it all began, and will all evolve at 0 point of time or place where all comes into balance. On behalf of Sharri Plaza, thank you for listening. Please subscribe, like, and visit again.